Bonjour, bonjour. It is good to see everyone here. My name is Dr. Krista Kosterman. I'm the Chief Science Officer here at the DNA Company, and I am privileged and honored to be with a great panel of women this evening, all part of the DNA Company. And we're going to be talking to you today about personalized medicine and about how we are shifting what exactly that means, shifting the care. So without further ado, allow me to introduce this panel of women to you, or at least maybe we each introduce ourselves. I feel like you all could do a much better job than myself. So I have Dr. Lara Varden, who is one of our most esteemed and valued clinicians here at the DNA Company, who sees many of our precision clients. I have Allison Henry, who is our Chief Operating Officer and one of the people that helped found and form this program. And last but not least, I have our illustrious leader, Ms. Tracy Wood, who is our commanding officer, our CEO, and someone who is so very, very, very passionate and a huge motivator and champion of this program for reasons that are very dear and tender to her heart. So welcome, ladies.
Good afternoon.
Yes, hello, good evening.
Oh, that's right. What are you, 3 hours in front of me?
Yes, I am.
Oh, you've already had pizza. I haven't even gotten home yet.
We are covering the globe.
That's a beautiful thing.
Yes.
It is. Yeah, it's fun. We actually do get to see people from all around the world come through our door, which is so delightful. It's so very delightful. I think the furthest away we've seen is what, Australia, South Africa?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I love that. So Tracy, why don't you kick us off a little bit with some of your personal passion, or what led you to found this? What led you to recognize the need for a program like Precision?
Yeah, I was in the grocery store and I thought to myself, no, I'm just kidding.
Not gonna get apples, I'll get a medical program. What can I say?
Right? I think this lettuce looks like shit. I'm not staying here. Oh, and Julius put the swearing disclaimer. You guys know it's coming. So yeah, right. I do have some definite views on healthcare in America, right? February 3rd, 2007, my oldest sister died of a drug overdose. And Jackie was a schizophrenic patient, which we did not know. Her family, none of us had any idea. We knew she had a substance problem. We didn't realize the substance was being given to her by a licensed psychiatrist at UCI, one of the largest health systems in the country. And that she had gone to him, and he was a psychiatrist, which is an important piece of the puzzle. And she had gone to him and said that she had cancer, and that specifically she needed medication to deal with her chemotherapy. Now, he knew she was schizophrenic because he diagnosed her. And at this time, there were EMRs all over the United States. We were 7 years in, right? Because at Y2K, EMRs really kicked off. And rather than going to the EMR on his desk, because she said she was treated at UCI, again, she was schizophrenic. She was going to say anything. Rather than look that up, he just treated her and treated her for 5 years. And the problem that I have with what happened, and I'm not going to get super into my beliefs. I believe everything happens for a reason, right? I believe we're all here for a certain number of days, and those days are known before we ever incarnate into this world, right? And I believe that. So I know that that was Jackie's path. For whatever reason, that was her path. But when you look at all of the medications that were given to her, there was 32 different drugs, 5 of which were all to manage schizophrenia. The rest, the majority, were narcotics. So she was on gabapentin, she was on Neurontin, she was on Soma, Xanax, Vicodin 750, OxyContin 20 milligrams. I mean, the list went on. When I got the autopsy back, and I'm looking at this list, and I remember thinking to myself, how does anybody, I mean, this is America, how does anybody give all of those pills to one person?
Hmm.
Right? How do you do that? How does a practitioner do that? And that question was not the question that I needed to be asking, right? Because she was already dead. The question I needed to be asking, and I finally did start to ask, was, what can I do? I mean, I was a broker, for God's sake. I mean, that's all this shit on the wall. I was a broker. I dealt in money, a lot of money, and houses and properties, and I was asking all the wrong questions, right? And the question for me became, what can I do? If anything, I knew very little about the world of medicine. You fucking people annoy me. I don't like needles. I don't like doctors. I don't like any of it. So what can I do? Right? My sister left behind at that time. Her oldest boy, who is developmentally disabled, was 21 or 22. And her daughter was 16. And I kept asking the same question, what can I do? Right? How can I help? What can I change? And that's how I started on the path of building the company that I ended up years later running into Kashif and growing the business from there.
Yeah. And I find it interesting on the other side, on the provider side, right? On the clinician side, that annoying side, you're very welcome. I find it very interesting that your grievance with the system, and Dr. Lar, I'm sure you can echo this, is a very similar grievance to mine, albeit from a different perspective, in the sense of it's very debilitating to an extent as a provider to work in isolation and not know the balance of care around a person, right? To feel like you're always working in isolation when you know you are a vital part of the puzzle, but not the only part of the puzzle. And there's other people with different expertise that should be part of that care team, should be part of that solution, but not in an independent, isolated way where the person, the patient in the middle, is having to string it all together, but in a scenario where that stringing together has already been thought through and done and is not a work effort on the patient, on the provider. It's just naturally integrated into how the care is offered.
Right.
Yeah, because to your point, that's how someone gets on 30 some odd medications.
Well, and it was all one prescribing doctor, right? And it was one pharmacy. So when I met Kashif and he was talking about Pharmaco back then, now Pharmaco was not new to the DNA company. Pharmaco has been a thing since 2018. The problem with Pharmaco was the government didn't want to approve it for Medicare and Medicaid because it's expensive. And in 2018, when they did get it through in, I think it was 31 of the states, they started, $4,000 per visit, $5,000 per visit. So healthcare did what healthcare's always done, right? We charge $37 for a fucking Benadryl. Benadryl is not $37 for one tablet, right? But that's what we do. Because if we bill you $37, you're going to end up paying $3. Well, a whole bottle of Benadryl is $3. And I just paid for one instead of the 30. So the medical system was broken. Right? I mean, Jackie was a perfect storm. She was poor, she was mentally unhealthy, and she was an addict of sorts. Now, whether that was to manage the voices in her head or any of those things, none of us will ever know because we can't ask her. The last time I talked to her, she was on a metal table with a blanket and a pair of purple socks. So it became a mission for me. And when I met Kashif and he talked about Pharmaco, I did my research and I said, I want to find a way to do it, but to drive it with a clinical plan behind it.
Mm-hmm.
The reason it took Jackie 5 years to die was not because of the amount of medication. The reason it took 5 years to die was because they didn't know that genetically there was a drug that Jackie could not tolerate. And that's where Pharmaco came in. And when you run that panel and you find out what your body can and cannot absorb and what can kill you, 1.3 medical mistakes are made every single year in every ER and ED in the United States. 7,000 of those people die. My sister was a statistic, but they didn't count her because she also was an addict. Well, she was an addict because that guy treated her and treated her for 5 years and continued to add narcotic after narcotic. Knowing she was schizophrenic, knowing they often self-medicate, they self-medicate with alcohol, with street drugs, etc. We know that in this business.
That's part of the diagnosing criteria.
And he just kept going. So when Kashif and I worked it all out for me to roll the company that I had at that time, which was a health share, to roll that into the DNA company and to build this beast, I said there were certain rules, right? I wanted certain types of practitioners. I wasn't having people that were certified for 14 hours learning nutrition, saying that they were nutritionists. Okay, that's part of the problem, right? So they had to have all these funky letters after their names like YouTube. And there had to be a standard. And so that was really what started the idea of precision. But in December of last year, I got a call from a patient that we had in my former business. And that particular patient also had a problem with alcohol. And in fact, not only did we put him into a facility, we then found a step down program for him. And then we assigned him a practitioner, and he continued to be sober and do exceedingly well. And he had a fallback. Somebody in the family had died right before Christmas. And so he called me and said, here's the deal. I've been drinking for 10 days. I said, fucking knock it off. And he goes, I knew I could count on you. Yes, you can. Just simply knock it off. And so we talked for a little while, and he said, I really wish that, I could stay connected and dialed in. And that's where precision really started for me. I went to Allison and I said, we have a lot of people that have either situations like Jackie. We've got teenagers that have challenges and people don't know what to do to help them and support them. And they won't consent to old school terrestrial medicine. We have people with chronic conditions, people with the most unique of symptomology, and they've tried everything and no one can figure it out. And I went to Ali and I said, I really want to find a way to build a program that's going to make this work for these people. These people are fucking dying and nobody cares. And so Allison and I spent quite a bit of time figuring out the risks, right? Figuring out the back end of the business and figuring out how to make it affordable and to make it unique for every single person that comes into that program. And that was very important to us. And that's really where precision was born. That's the driving force behind it.
And I'll say that I have such an appreciation for what we have created here with the DNA company, because yes, I am on the clinical side, but I was on the patient side. Mine was for a car accident and several surgeries, and on that merry-go-round with the pain management and the medications that they gave me. I hated being on them. I didn't want to be on them, but I also didn't like the chronic pain I was having. And it really came down to me, finally making that decision, going, allopathic medicine is not helping me truly heal. They just are putting me on this circle of, prescribe, diagnose, just keep me on that hamster wheel. And I was like, I can't do this anymore.
Right.
And, but it was also going to the orthopedist, going to the pain management, going to the neurosurgeon. No one spoke to each other. And it's like I constantly had to retell my story. And then, I only got a few minutes with them. And that we have totally flipped that here, that we work as a team, we talk with each other, we have the patient be a part of the team, because it truly is up to them to take on that responsibility, not take away their agency. And
Right.
that's the difference. We are here to, excuse me, to help and support. And, I keep thinking, if I had this option, now, thankfully, I didn't, get stuck in the narcotic medications. I was always taking less than what was prescribed, but, if I had a team support that was there to answer the calls, when I had, an issue, or I was in so much pain that I didn't want to keep living. Yes, that crossed my mind a few times. Obviously I didn't do that, but it happens when you
Yeah.
feel so out of control, or that it doesn't.
You're sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a thing. I mean, we see a lot of that, right? I mean, I can't even imagine. I know some of the surgeries you've had. I can't even imagine the shit you endured. I mean, seriously. And the fact that you didn't come out as a junkie, I mean, credit to you, because the majority of patients would. If you look at, I think it's called Dope Sick. Have you guys seen that? That's really what happened. That's what led to all these lawsuits of billions and billions of dollars, right? We know the American healthcare system is severely damaged. There's a bunch of different solutions that if you could just put them all into a room, you could harness and exact some change. But the problem is everybody is behind that door with their hand like this, and they're just money, hand over fist. These drug companies, the CEOs of the healthcare companies, it's fucking outrageous. Yet it continues. At what cost? How many more people die? Look at what just happened to what's his name? The guy from Beth, text me the answer. The guy from TV, and it's a teeny bopper. Friends.
The Matthew Perry.
Yes. He was injecting ketamine. A doctor was writing a script for him to inject ketamine. Ketamine is what we give our horses when they break some shit. Okay, ketamine is designed for a 1,500-pound animal. And now they're looking for uses in behavioral health, and they're looking for uses in stress management. Are you kidding me?
Well, look what they're doing with fentanyl.
Yeah.
The fact that that is being laced in a lot of, prescription drugs, it's like you never know. There was a wonderful deep dive interview that Del Bigtree did on the High Wire about this, and the investigative journalist that actually wrote a book about it. It's just amazing. Went undercover, went to China, to a lab, saying he was a drug dealer and wanted to get information, and they had him go to the lab in China. It's really scary.
It is. But again, it comes back to, it's kind of like you said, you're going to all these doctors and none of them are talking to each other. EMRs were put in place for that ability to communicate without compromising the patient's information or their identity, right? That was the goal. We have PBMs, which are prescription benefit management systems in America, that allow any doctor and any pharmacist to look up every drug you have ever been prescribed. Nobody's worried about that collaboration. Nobody's worried about looking that data up. It's all good. But you take a doctor or a patient, and in your case, a doctor, that gets broadsided by a double-decker bus or whatever the fuck it was that hit you, and you end up having to talk to all of these different people. They're not going to go into that same system and look up all your shit.
No, and I'll tell you, it is really difficult to stay focused and be able to communicate with your doctors, clear-headed and everything else, when you are on all that medication and when you are in so much pain that you're just trying to live moment to moment.
Right,
It should not have to be that way. And
Right.
that's what we are able to do, because I don't expect the medical doctors to be able to handhold, to check in, to be able to lay out a nutrition plan, look at the lifestyle, what's your toxic load, how can we minimize that, how can we, affect changes in your lifestyle, in your habits to help you heal at a root cause, start teasing out all of the complex nature of the people we have coming into our precision program. It's like,
right.
I understand that they don't have, that's outside of their scope of practice, but it's got to be somebody's.
Right. And that's the whole gist of what we did, right? So when we came into precision, one of the big things, of course, is money, right? How do we make sure that, because we do a ton of testing under precision, and that stuff gets very expensive. So we went and negotiated with labs everywhere, and we got the best possible price, cash price for these people. And we said, okay, listen, we're going to unconditionally guarantee these payments. We're going to pay them, but we want to put these people into your system. And they said, give me the old lady's credit card. And I ponied, and that was the end of it. So that's how we got to really start to kind of stack the offering of what we could give to these folks in the programs. And I think that, for me, it's all about that one more patient, right? That one more life. And, I could sit here and attack the pharmaceutical companies. I could sit here and attack the healthcare system as a whole. Don't even get me started on legislation. That doesn't do anybody any good. It's not changing anything. So we had to get in and get our hands under the hood and create something that created that change. It's real easy to sit back in your, in your recliner. Oh, they all suck. Well, do something. And that's what we all decided to come together and do.
I think
So-
it's important to be aware of what is going on. So we know what the issues are. We know what, patients, what people are dealing with. So that way we can come up with, as we have, solutions.
1,000%. We can't go and unring the bell that's been rung for them, right? We can't do that. All we can do is meet them where they are in that moment and say, okay, so if it's chronic condition, what's happening to you? And let's ask all the questions that maybe no one's asked yet. But that's why the review panel is so pivotal, Dr. Kosterman.
Yeah,
right?
I was gonna ask, maybe if we take a step back and walk our audience through what our intake process looks like, who the candidates are, how we get to a point where we as a clinical team are actually huddling and creating that plan. Like, how do we bring people into the precision program who qualifies? Because let's be honest, everyone who applies does not qualify, and everyone who
they do
applies
not.
does not make it into the program. So why don't, I can't believe I'm being the practical person here, but why don't we
I
get
can't either. That just doesn't happen around here.
No, can someone write down the date? I'd really appreciate that. Date and time. Why don't we though, maybe Allison or
Sure.
Tracy, if you guys kind of want to start us through that application process, and then maybe Dr. Lara and I can walk us through what goes through our head during these panels and during the consideration of who is and is not a good candidate for the program.
Allie, you want to take this?
Absolutely. I mean, with everything you guys have shared, it's clear that, there's no script that we follow, right? Like every case is unique and every person is worth talking to, right? Everyone deserves a chance. And so, if you're interested in learning, the first step is to reach out to us. And so we do have a dedicated email that Tracy monitors, and she listens to people's stories. She takes that initial, hey, this is what I'm going through. And then we have the person fill in an intake form. And really that's where they can give us more information about what they're dealing with, what they've experienced, things that have happened throughout their life, medication, supplements, etc. it gives us a written account from their perspective that we then dive into in our panel session. So once we receive the intake, we schedule a panel session, which includes myself, Tracy, and one of our doctors. So Dr. Kosterman, Dr. Varden, depending on the situation. And we just sit down and listen. You know, that's really what we start with, is like, how can we help you? You know, what is it that you've struggled with? What frustrations do you face? And people can really, you know, just open up to us and let us better understand what it is that they're looking for, right? There's questions that the doctors have that are very fine-tuned on the medical side. Tracy has a lot of background as well, and obviously, you know, she's got her areas of expertise that she so humbly, you know, keeps close to her chest, but she's she has a couple secrets. Yeah, but really what we want to know is, you know, what's lacking in what you've experienced so far, and how can we best support you in the next phase of, you know, your healing journey, wherever that lies, right? And then the panel will convene after and discuss, okay, based on all of this information that we now know, how do we structure something for this individual, right? What suite of testing, what practitioners and specialists do we need to assemble, right? It's about bringing a care team around you, lifting you up and giving you the tools that you need, right? And, you know, obviously there's lots of things that we have that we can bring to the table. You know, we have a beautiful line of supplements that's a great fit for the majority of our patients that we can then offer. So we build that and present that then to that individual and the cost associated. So there's definitely like a process. This is for somebody that has potentially felt overwhelmed or frustrated in the past and is really looking to make that commitment to themselves, to their health, and to, you know, this journey, right? And we're along with them throughout the process. So that's kind of our flow and how we like to go through this. And we found, you know, a lot of really wonderful people that just need that extra guidance and support that the Precision program offers outside of what they may receive, you know, in one of our traditional options, right? Those options are still fantastic and a great fit for most people, right? So I'll let you guys take over now and just go into that side. But it's important to note that if you're not a candidate for Precision, then quite often we find a fit for you in one of our other programs, right? So just keep that in mind. If it's something that you're considering, we would love to hear from you and go through the process.
And bring us your case, right? Bring us your case, bring your medical records, bring your challenge, write us a narrative, tell us what the hell is going on. You know, we're not the jumpstart your car with crystals people, right? We are not. Dr. Kosterman's going to laugh because now I'm going to make fun of people in our own industry. But we're not, right? We're not going to. I had a practitioner one time send me this protocol, and the protocol was 99.98% water, and it was this big, and it was like $800. It's like, are you fucking kidding me? Do you think, does it say stupid right here? It does not. I sent it back and told them I wanted my money back. So we're not those people. we're not gonna create some holy water for you and send it to you and have you splashing around like John the Baptist. That's not what we're going to be doing here. Okay, this is legitimate. This is legitimate solutions to real world problems, right? Mm-hmm. So, and I'm going to stop making fun of some of the people in our industry. But I'm going to stop doing it publicly right now. But seriously, I mean, you guys come in, you guys have a combined area of expertise, hormones, cancer. I mean, you guys have got great backgrounds across the board. There's not a lot you haven't seen or that you don't understand or have an understanding or an awareness around, which is why it was so important for you guys to be part of the primary panel along with Dr. Nielsen and Lynn Angel. So what do you do when they come in? I mean, how does it feel from your perspective when we get a patient that brings in a particular case?
Yeah, so I'll start, and then Dr. Lara, maybe if you want to round off. I think for everyone that we see within the panel, by and large, they will have had their genetics done. I think this is very important to
Yeah,
us.
that's important.
We have that blueprint foundation. We know what they're weak within, we know what they're strong within. And to me, one of the most interesting questions is, if they're genetically strong in something but they're presenting with an issue there, that's a huge red flag, as obviously there's a disconnect and an easier low-hanging fruit space to address. But we assess genes, we assess intake forms. So we want all the medical records. We want, to Tracy's point, the narrative. We want as much information walking into this panel as we can get, because we sit with it, right? We don't walk into these panels and, you know, as your doctor might in the office, okay, you only have 7 minutes and 5 of these minutes are going to be me reading over your history. We do that prep work. We understand what we expect and we formulate questions. When Dr. Lara was talking about her history, something that was very interesting to me that she said that I see in particular with people with chronic illness and who have been struggling for a long time. They have so many care providers. They've offered their story so many different times. There's an element of they're no longer offering their story that is true to that day. They're just offering a script because there's an element of exhaustion. I don't want to have to go through this every time, so I've created this condensed version, and it was probably true a few years ago, but is it true to today? No, but I'm too tired to update that. So we walk in and we really try to poke into that story, ask questions. Is this true? Does this change? Really seeking to understand that picture, because again, we know often people who come to us with the more complex cases, as Dr. Lara was, you're exhausted of managing your own care. And it's not to say you're lying about your story. That's not the case. It's to say there's such fatigue, such exhaustion that you need new questions, compassionate questions to get to truly what is going on. And it's with that information, right, that we start to form up the ideas of, A, is this program appropriate for you, right? And if so, who from our team, who from our testing resources, who from our supplement resources. I'll let Dr. Lara elaborate on kind of how and who we can wrap in. But once we've done that very full encompassing intake and really poked and prodded as what is going on, where do we truly think at first blush that root cause is, we then consider humbly, do we have the resources? I mean, I'll be honest, so far we haven't really been met with a patient where we're like, oh shoot, they have this medical concern and we don't have a resource for them, but we're very humble about that question.
We had
right?
2 of them.
Okay.
True.
Okay. I guess I haven't been on any of those panels, but hear this honesty between the 4 of us. Hear what Tracy
Right.
just said. We practice medicine with the humility that it should be practiced with, in the sense of, if I see someone I don't think I can help them, I lay my ego aside and I say, nope, can't. But let's see if we can find someone else to support that is more skilled and masterful in that space. We don't play with your health, right? If you're coming to us with complex issues, we can't promise perfection. Medicine is a practice, but we will never knowingly get into a situation and offer poor care. We are very, very, very humble, very competent, but very humble at what we do. And so maybe Dr. Lara, I'm going to pass the proverbial mic to you. And if you want to speak a little bit to kind of how we form up that plan, who we pull in, what testing we consider to really, to your point, dig into root cause, right?
Excuse me. I think it's important to mention that during the intake interview is that we allow you as the patient to have your voice, tell your story. You know, we're going to ask questions. It is not a space of judgment. It is open, you know, and we are going to validate how you feel, what you've gone through, your frustrations. Because I think that a lot of times, and I know myself included, going to a doctor, you know, going to some of these specialists, it's like I try to explain something that I feel is important, but is not within their specialty, but I feel is relevant, and they blow it off. And then I don't feel heard. And you will not get that with us. We have a lot of different specialists, and we are able to work as a team. And, which I had mentioned earlier. I mean, we have people for, say, if you need someone for fitness, to help get some sort of fitness plan. Felicia Bruno, incredible woman. And, she is there and can work with you. We have health coaches. Justin is like the best that they come, just absolutely amazing. We have specialists in hormones, in different types of hypnotherapy and psychotherapy, and, obviously nutrition, and so many different aspects that we've got you covered. And it's very few and far between where we don't. And if we don't, we will eventually. Tracy will make sure to fill that gap.
Yeah.
So
I may or may not be guilty of hiring a few people if I need them.
Which is important. It's responsive. It's responsive.
Yeah, I mean, it really is looking at where are the gaps. Let's fill them.
Yeah.
Let's be supportive, and let's create that team for
Right.
you. I mean, with our, excuse me, our supplementation, this is personalized. We look and use your DNA. We
Right.
take into account your gender, your age, your height, your weight, and then of course our credentials and education, and knowing you, getting to know you. What is it that you need? Where you are right now, we can formulate that for you. And with the different types of tests, we want to make sure that we have the data. We're not just going off the seat of our pants and, yeah, this looks good. No, we want some hard data. That's where the tests come in. And this is where we have a benchmark to start with. And then as we start implementing changes and recommendations, and you are making, the life habits and these changes, we want to say and see, where are you now? How have you come? And we can look at that objective data to say, hey, look at your blood markers, look at your gut biome, see how we have shifted, the particular, groups that are there for the better, hopefully for the better if you've been following the recommendations. So we will never discount the subjective data, meaning how you feel. We listen to you, because ultimately you're the one driving the bus. It is your body. It's ultimately up to you. We can educate you, we can guide you, we can provide you with that support, but it's still up to you.
I think Dr. Laura makes such a beautiful point, and I'm glad you went back to the intake to really focus on the idea that it is the person before us in that panel that is picking effectively the goals of the program. Right? When you come to us with a health condition, it is not our job and space to assume what you want the end outcome to be. Right? And so we really want to listen to that, because if someone is exceptionally sick, their vision of what health is may not necessarily be ours. And so we will hear where they want to get, and we will hear how can we support to that end. Because to Dr. Laura's point, this is about empowerment and autonomy, and putting you back in control of your health, as opposed to reactive to all the care that is kind of haphazardly given.
There's a lack of respect in healthcare. There is a lack of respect in most primary care visits, urgent care visits, ED visits, that is so obvious in the first couple of seconds. When you arrive at an emergency room, Most of the time, you are not there just because you have nothing to do on a Friday night. When you arrive at the emergency room, you've got somebody there who's one, exhausted, two, been on shift for 5 hours and not had a break, and probably needs to go to the toilet. And that person's going to ask you 4 or 5 different things and nod their head the whole time you're talking, because they just want you to shut up. And I know that that's a gross generalization, and I am not attacking the people that are holding this system together. I am not. I am saying that's unfortunately exhaustion in that reality. Other times you'll go to a urgent care, and I saw this myself at 2 o'clock in the morning when my daughter had, I don't know what the hell was wrong with her, but she had extreme pain. We thought her appendix was going to burst, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So we arrived there. Now, my daughter is a college graduate. She's never had a drink. She's never tried any drugs. As clean as they come, still calls me mommy. It's a beautiful thing. And we get there and they start asking her questions, and she's in a ridiculous amount of pain. Now, it's important to know that my child had ITP, which is a form of leukemia, when she was 2 years old. So when something goes wrong with the kid that really doesn't ever get sick, okay? So we get there, and this poor girl, I know she's exhausted, and she's sitting and she's nodding, and my child is ready to vomit because she's in a lot of pain. And I'm thinking, I don't know if it's her appendix. But the long and the short of it, they took like 3 minutes, and then she was out on the chairs for 35 minutes because they thought she was drug seeking, because that's what happens. You go into these facilities, and that's what a lot of them see. People are ruled out. People like Dr. Varden, who would never drug seek a day in her life, was on so many medications. She wouldn't even take all the shit they gave her. Had she have gone into an ED because her pain was out of control, they'd have profiled her. And she would not be someone in that profile any more than my child was. So, you have to look at these people in the system, and they are tired. They're tired, and they only have so many things they're allowed to do in that 7 minutes. I mean, you go into a surgery, your anesthesiologist, who, by the way, is the most expensive guy in the room per pound, you go into a surgery and you see him for all of 3 minutes, checks the IV, looking good. Here's a little numbing agent. Good night, Irene. And it's done. You never see them again. You don't know if they had trouble tubing you unless you wake up and find out there was a problem. You don't know any of that stuff. And they've got 2 other beds that are waiting for procedure after procedure behind you. So when people are coming in, they are fatigued, right? They're exhausted. People come into our precision meetings and they're exhausted. And when we start asking questions in the very beginning, it's a little tense. And then we start to ask different things. What do you do for a living? What does your spouse do? Do you have children? Because we want to know everything that factors into how you're presenting in that moment. All of that is relevant. So it is important to be heard as a patient. It is important to feel respected. It is important to feel like we give 2 shits about what's really going on with you. And most people don't get that.
And I would offer the change to the system is sought and desired, I think, not just by us, but by doctors, by nurses.
It's global.
Right? A lot of them recognize the systems they work within are not working, but they as individuals are not enabled based on their practice to shift that, right? It's to an extent people outside innovating outside the system, right? I think of, as a naturopath, people receive me in 1 of 2 different ways. I'm a witch, or I'm the best thing ever. And so it's usually older generations of doctors that think of me as a witch. And it's interestingly people who are my age peers, younger, maybe a few years older, that are like, you're doing some really cool stuff, because they see the space for it, because they recognize they are very much emergent kind of surgical big medicine. And then what I do is sit outside of that and keep people from getting there. Right. And so there's a space for it all. And I see, as medicine progresses, as what we do progresses, there's going to be a lot more synergy and collaboration, but you know, and until that point, right? This is where programs like ours come in and say, cool, we're going to figure it out.
So a bunch of people are here. You guys are here for a reason. Are you curious? Do you have something going on? If you have questions, put them in either the Q&A box or the chat window. Raise your hand. We'll talk to you live. Tell us what's going on for you, and let's see if there's something that we can do.
And I have to say a little sidebar that by the grace of God and all the work that I put in, I have not had or taken any of those prescriptive medications since 2015. Got off all of them, have been off, you know, for basically 9 years now. And I feel wonderful. So know that prescriptions don't have to be necessarily a forever thing. You know, when you clean up the terrain, when you strengthen your immune system and your gut and your brain, you don't need those anymore. So, not necessarily. I mean, again, we take each of you where you are as individuals and see what can be done. In my case, I was very lucky that I was able to get off those medications that I had been on for 14 years. So, which is a, excuse me, a long time.
And look at how healthy you are, right?
Yes.
Look at some of the patients we get that are on really hardcore medications for pain, for inflammation, for, you know, all of the stuff that you were challenged with. Look at how healthy you are. Can we talk about your mom for a minute?
Oh gosh, yes.
Okay. So I love the story about your mom. If but for you, mom would not be in great shape, right? So what happened there? What did you do for her?
Well, she just had her 81st birthday in July.
Happy
and-
birthday, Mom.
Yes. She's actually always been pretty healthy. But, you know, toxins and just life and stress and everything else, you know, she ended up having a thyroid mass. Thankfully so far, you know, not cancerous or anything, but, you know, I've had her on a good regimen of healthy foods, supplements. She has no major diagnoses. She's on no prescription medications at 81.
At 81, that is unheard of, Dr. Varden.
Oh yeah. And so when she had a test, the imaging for the mass on her thyroid, her doctor, excuse me, had called and was, you know, telling her and talking to her about it. And she's like, oh my gosh, your blood work is absolutely fantastic. She goes, I don't even know why you're even having any of these issues. Of course, it's not like they're real serious. I mean, it's just can be a little, you know, problem with her throat. But I mean, it really isn't anything major. But she just kept saying her blood work was fantastic. And my mom was like, my daughter.
Right? Right?
And
Blood
she
doesn't lie.
She does her own yard work. I mean, she's got, gosh, I think like a half acre or, you know, a decent amount of land. And she does the yard work herself. She loves doing it. She loves cleaning her home. She, you know, does all of that herself because she can and she enjoys it. And that's what keeps her going. I mean, she's just amazing. And, you know, the fact that, you know, up until, gosh, I think it was end of June, she was principal of a school at 80 years old and did an incredible job, you know? So yeah, I want to be like her when I grow up.
Yeah, exactly. We all want to be like her when we grow up,
I hope we never grow up, but
right?
There you go.
Allie, I think we have a question in the Q&A box. Why don't you take a look at that?
Yeah, so I guess we kind of missed one, like the next, which hopefully will address this is, you know, once we've gone through this whole process of understanding these, you know, candidates and we've determined what works for them is what's the next step, right? So we have our VIP concierge take over then and start scheduling them with the team, right? So this is something that is established as we work with that individual to determine all of the needs that they have. They may have visits with one individual practitioner on the team, but generally it's a team that's required, right? So we get everyone together, meet the patient, come up with the plan, and then they start going through the process of consulting with those practitioners, right? If they need hormone support, then there's a doctor there that can do that. If they need nutrition counseling or fitness, then there's someone there to support with that as well. So again, the point of this is not just to put them in a cookie cutter, like, you know, these are the protocols that we'll, you know, implement. It's to really determine how to structure something that's effective for them, right? That they can follow, that they can see, you know, measurable steps towards their end goal throughout the process, right? So for some people, this is a 6-month or 9-month journey. For most, it's a 12-month journey, right? So when you're dealing with more complex situations and you know, there's more muscle that needs to go into this, it's not something that's solved overnight, right? Like some people will see immediate things that they can identify with that are positive, right? So
Right.
what I mean by that is, you know, somebody doesn't realize, you know, a few adjustments to their diet is going to make an impact on, you know, how they sleep or, you know, their skin or whatever it is that they're looking for. So that's the things that they can see immediately, right? And then there's the long-term things, right? Like if there's osteoporosis in there, like a lot of people come to us for things like that. That's
Yeah.
not something that you can see a measurable difference in a month or two, right? That's a longer term plan that needs to be really adhered to before you really start to see a measurable improvement. So just to kind of fast forward through from the first stage, which is where the heavy lifting comes in for us to get a good understanding, assessment, baseline, to the 12-month plan, like it's really our mission to be there for you, right? To have different people with different skill sets, right? Like the concierge, they're the most caring team. I mean, obviously all of our practitioners have the biggest hearts I've ever encountered, but you know, having that connective tissue, right? Having someone to go to when you have a question, right? I chatted with a practitioner today and we both just couldn't believe, like, it's September 4th right now. Like life feels like it's on fast forward, right? So it's like we just needed to pick up the phone and talk to each other because life for everyone, for me, for Tracy, for everyone that comes into these types of conversations, like they all have their own distractions, right? So it's the connective tissue that we can offer through this program that keeps people on track, right? You have somebody that's checking in with you on a weekly basis. You have, you know, somebody that can keep you accountable, your coaches, right? So you have the doctors guiding you and giving you that knowledge that you're seeking. Like it really is an experience, and it's something that we've been asked to deliver, right? So when I first started, you know, talking to patients or potential candidates for our other programs, many of them really just had that big need, right? Like there's a lot of hurting people out in the world. And so that's why we created this as well, right? Like Tracy shared examples. Laura's been through an example in her life, right? And many people that are in this industry that have taken up this type of work, they have their own personal journey and a personal story, a reasoning behind it, right? They've been that person that's felt frustrated with the system that was previously out there. So for us, the goal is to provide an alternative and to, you know, really take it to a place that people want, right? To answer the call and to offer something that we feel is necessary and needed by a lot of people.
Yeah, there's another question in the chat window asking about dental and oral care. So that's more of a terrestrial business. However, we do deal a lot with heavy metals and toxins in the body. Some of that stems from that. We do have a network that we refer people to so that they can have those things removed with great care. There's a lot involved in performing that type of a function. But it really depends on what it is that you're looking for. You know, we are not above finding you a referral. Even if you're not a program patient, even if you haven't had your DNA run here, I don't care. If you need something, send an email to the CEO email. Allie's right. I really do read them all. And tell me what's happening. If I don't know somebody, I know somebody who does. And we'll go figure that out, right? So if that's something that you need, Steph, I know you put the question in there, just send me an email. Tell me what it is you're looking for. And if we've got a buddy, we'll leverage our relationships for our community. So feel free to do that.
But one thing
Ladies,
that
I
we
don't think we have a
certainly
lot of
do
questions. What was that?
well, something that we do as far as information for dental and oral care, we can discuss that and at least, you know, inform you of how important that affects overall health, your gut biome, oral biome to gut biome, and so many other different aspects. So, you know, it's not, we do not ignore any aspect of your life or of your needs. But with actually having dental care, you know, that's more so what Tracy was talking about, you know, to be able to have referrals to more of a localized place where you can actually get to.
Yeah, and that just brings me to something else that's come up a couple of times, right? Like there's so much information out there. There's so many places that you can go for, you know, advice on should I do this, should I not, right? And a lot of people like actually genuinely come to me and say, I'm just overwhelmed with who do I trust? Who do I listen to? And so part of the comfort that people get in working with us in these programs and specifically Precision is they know that they have a team that's well educated, that's passionate, that's, you know, all of these things, and it becomes a source of that relief that they need because they can trust you, Dr. Bard, and they, like you said, you will give them the information and they know that that's coming from a place of, you know, care and knowledge, right? So that's been another reason why Tracy and I wanted to put this together is like people share these things with us, and it's real life emotion, it's real life things that we can help them with, right? So I know that it's been a source of frustration for me as well, like in my own health journey, and I'm not gonna get into that here, but yeah, like it's important to know that Dr. Varden's mind is like, it's an endless kind of vault of resource, and not just her, but Dr. Kosterman too, right? Like, and that's the beautiful thing that I've learned about being a part of this team is like, you don't have to sit there in frustration and try to figure it out, is like, just ask the question. And once you have that relationship, it's like so beautiful to see how, you know, that in itself, just the sharing of that knowledge and that information can give somebody, you know, what they need, right? So
and you know, one of the things that we also do is we do screen for 70 different systems of breast cancer or cancer in general, right? But we do have a new breast cancer test. Oh, we're not telling anybody that yet.
I'm sure that was a calculated slip, but we'll take it. I'll take
It
it.
totally was. Are you kidding me? Of course it was. So yes, the majority of younger women getting breast cancer that could have easily been detected.
Let's back that up. The number of people getting breast cancer under, like even under 40, all those numbers are on the rise. Yes, very specific to cancer, or sorry, breast cancer in women.
Yes, but
info.
that is the new test that we're going to talk about, which is breast cancer in women. And in America, you don't get a mammogram until you're over 40 something, 45 or something like that. That's just stupid. That's like saying you're not going to give a man a PSA test under 40. That's just stupid. You know, these are things that we went into our liquid biopsy and said, we have to have PSA for men in there. We have to have CA-125 in there for women, but we also have to have a early detection in both blood and now this new test that we're going to unveil. And it's all about that early detection. When you look at 70% of the cancers that are diagnosed in America are not screened for. That's also part of what we're doing in these programs. So people have got a history of cancer. We're going to screen them. We're going to screen them, you know, their blood all the way across every single system that we can. And I think it's important that people understand the more information we get, these tests evolve. The more information that is available to us, that science is available to us, our Gut 360 test is about to evolve in a massive way. So we are always out there on that bleeding edge, trying to find what's real in science. Where's their efficacy? Where is the study? And what can we do to incorporate that stuff for our community? It's important. It's important to stay educated. It's important to know what your choices are, but it's important to be able to afford it. And, you know, the breast cancer test is going to be tied to a charity that some of us sit on the board of. And that launch hopefully will get into every single community that we can in the United States. And our goal is to expand that globally. So, you know, it's not just about us here in the US, right? It's about a global outreach. It's about a desire to exact change for everyone, regardless of where they sit, right? Regardless of who they are or how they identify or where their histories are, or none of that matters. What matters is we all have a fundamental right to be well. And the goal is for us to help find what that well is for you, for your family, for your friends. It's important for us to figure that out. So the new test will be out in October. We haven't even released it on the website. Hey, did we tell these guys that we made a magazine?
No,
Dr. Martin, did you tell anybody you made a magazine?
I did. Yes, I am managing editor of DNA Talks Digest, and our wonderful Tracy Wood is our editor, and that should be coming out
12 days.
Yes.
12 days.
Okay, there we go.
We're releasing that in 12 days. But did you tell them that you made a new school?
I did. Of course, I didn't do it alone. I mean, I have such an incredible team. Yes,
we do.
I also am the dean of the DNA University, and we have tremendously expanded what our offerings are. You know, really diving into the most recent science and really making it so incredible. And it's not just for MDs and NDs and PhDs. You know, this is great practical information. Yes, we do dive into the science. If you want to totally nerd out, we do have areas of research, so it really, I'm so excited about it. So that will, excuse me, that will actually be launched shortly thereafter, the digest. So
7 days after the digest. So as you guys can see, we're doing a lot of really cool stuff here. We're doing all of this cool stuff because we do want to support our community. We do want to educate our community. We have 30,000 providers in our community. We want to educate those that want to impact their patients with foundational knowledge. That foundational knowledge is your DNA and how you express and how you show up, and then how you take that treatment, right? You go to a provider, if they understand how you learn, they're going to share it with you differently. If they understand how you adapt and actually make change to behavior, they're going to help package it in that way for you. So if you're a provider, it's a great time to get your certification. It is accredited as a certified functional genomics practitioner. And it's a great time to expand your knowledge and be part of that community. When you've joined that community, you will have lifetime access. So all of the education that we add after this launch in September, you'll have access to that. You'll have access to our testing trainings, which Dr. Kosterman spends a great deal of time delving into how that science works, how to explain all of that to all of you and make it so that you guys can retain it. And then, of course, any of the educational material, we're publishing papers all the time. We're just now putting out another one with our lab on our DNA aging product. So all of that will be available in the DNA University.
Mhm.
really
All right,
taking
Doctor,
the
I don't
Like
think
a
we
mic
have any
drop.
more questions.
That felt like
We're
a good
done.
mic drop.
Yes.
Okay, mic drop indeed, unless there are questions.
I don't think so. I think we're good.
I think the proverbial fat lady is singing. Well, you do not fit that description.
No, you do not.
Oh, I'll tell you, I used to being on all that medication and not having the exercise. I was over 200 pounds.
Past doctor may have present doctor, absolutely. When they sing though, we can say when the thin lady sings.
Yeah, there you
The audience does not know is that we do have a songstress in our midst, someone who is vocally trained. So
There we go. Yes.
Dr. Varden's vocally trained?
yes, ma'am.
Yeah.
How did I not know this about you?
Oh, I don't know. Well, when I went to university the first time, I went on a voice and violin scholarship.
Holy.
Oh.
Wow. Yes, Linda Anderson wants to know if there's a replay. Yes, there is a replay link. Beth will make sure everybody that's in here gets that. And thanks for stopping in.
Thank you so much, everyone, for coming.
Good night, everybody.
Bonsoir.
Thank you, team. Bye, guys.